Well, hey everybody, welcome to Planters Knowledge pop-up vodcast. I know some of you were like, my goodness, wasn't she just on? Yeah, I was. I was just on 2 hours ago with my brother Brian, really an hour ago, because we were on from 3 to 4 with family and finances. And as I told you, I was coming back here. So this is a hot week. Last night was the greatest blueprint. We had family and finances, and right now we are getting into the Planters Knowledge Pop Up Podcast. And I know some people said, well, you used to call it a podcast. And I said, yeah, but podcast is audio, vodcast is the video, right? Virtual podcast and so forth. So I'm starting to put it's the new year. I'm starting something new. I'm putting vodcast on it because that's what it is. It is this video interview, so you get a chance to see and hear. Now, for those who are new to Planters Knowledge is the name of my publishing company. As an author, when I had my first book, I went through another company in 2009. And by the time 2014 came around, KDP had come out. You were able to publish things on your own with ease. And then since then, I am the self proclaimed #1 adult children's book author of The Adventures of Froggy T and Bunny, a hip hop tale. There are 4 books in that series that I'll talk about in a little bit. But in the process, I've had the opportunity to meet so many other authors, going out to book events and so forth. And my husband, Ed, said to me one day, he said, Kat, he said, why don't you go introduce yourself and find out what these other authors are doing? And next thing, and he's like, you can interview them. And that's how Planners Knowledge Pop-Up Podcast was birthed. And so during this show, what I do is I talk to different authors. We learn about their genre, we learn about their author's journey, and we learn about their writing process and so forth. Because there's a lot of people out there who have considered writing. Some people have writings already done, but they haven't published it yet. And this is a great opportunity to learn about other people and get that courage up. So, with any of my shows, I always encourage people, please make sure you have pen and paper ready. That's including myself, because something is always said that we want to make sure that we capture. All right. And so today's show, hey, Leslie, I am so excited. Like, there are times in my life where I feel as though I get those divine, like, bing, like you are anointed to go forward in this space. And I got tears coming to my eyes as I'm saying this. And that's how I felt when Embahra agreed to be on this show. And it was just the confirmation that, yes, continue to do what you are doing. And then she sent me the picture, which then I was like, now she done blessed the mic with the ankh. Like, this is it. So this is super exciting to be interviewing her again. So let me welcome her to the show, and I'll explain why I said again. So welcome. I got to give you a tambourine welcome. Welcome.
Greetings. It's so good to be with you again. I'm so excited about this. Oh my goodness. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, I had to say it's Ed. We were watching television one night, and he looked at me. He said, "Have you reached out to Embahra yet?" I go, "Oh, no, I didn't." And then he picked up his phone and he sent you a message, and he was
That's
like, "It's
so
on
sweet.
you
That's so
now."
sweet. Shout out to Baba Umoja.
Yes,
Yeah, shout out.
yes.
Yes.
So yes, welcome, welcome.
Yes.
So
Thank you
tell
for having me.
Oh, you are so welcome. So tell the people a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So my name is Embahra Maat. I'm the high priestess of the Temple of Anu. My title is Nebt-Het. So most people call me Hemet or Nebt-Het, but you guys are welcome to call me Embahra as well. I've been a priestess of the Kemetic tradition since 2009,
Mhm.
and a high priestess, the Nebt-Het, since 2014. But I've been a writer all my life. I started off um, my earliest memories of writing was just like journaling and like little
Mhm.
short stories, fairy tales and stuff in like in elementary school.
Mhm.
In middle school, I wrote plays that were produced by my middle school drama club. And I
Oh,
was like, that
wow.
was amazing. That was so much inspiration for me to see them put on those shows.
Uh-huh.
And at high school, I played around with poetry a lot, some songwriting, a lot of
Mhm.
teenage angst. So a lot of
Mhm.
like a lot of emotional writing.
Yes, yes.
And then in college, I went on to take classes in creative writing, and I dabbled in short stories, and
Mm.
that's what got me into my inspiration to one day write a novel. So,
Mhm.
for me, writing, for me, writing became like the intersection between my spiritual journey and just my writer's journey, and that part of my
Love
life has
it.
very much always been there for me.
Yeah, you know what? It's so interesting. I never thought about the intersection between your spiritual journey and your writer's journey. I'd never even thought about that. And that is so true with my first two books, with The Greatest Soul Journey,
Mhm.
and which stands for God Restores Excellence, Activates Talents, Encourages Spiritual Transformation. I mean, there's no more intersection than that, right?
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah,
And then Live by the Spirit.
yeah.
So how I never put those two together, I don't know. Thank you.
But it was there because you write what you're passionate about. And
Mhm.
sometimes you're going through, your own spiritual evolutions, and you
Mhm.
find that those lessons and those themes are being reflected in what you're writing, and what you're investigating in your own soul is coming out through your own creative
Yes,
process.
yes.
Um, and it ends up being part of the investigation, but it
Mhm.
also ends up being something that for me, I very much am grateful that like Hidden by Moonlight has been something that a lot of other people have also benefited from. I'm sure you feel the same way with your two books, right? That
Mhm.
people read them and the spiritual lessons in them are so universal and
And
profound.
timeless.
Yes, and that makes them so relatable. They're so
Yes,
relatable. So
yes.
become something for everybody.
Yeah, that's the part that's so fascinating to me because I'll be working with my clients present day and they'll say something and I'll grab my book and I'll be like, okay, on page such and such, and I'll read and they'll be like, yes, yes, that's exactly what I'm going through. And I'm like, I wrote this in 1998 or
Mhm.
2004. And I'm like, how is it still so applicable?
Mhm.
But it just is.
Yeah, it's universal truth. So it never
Hmm.
stops being true. It never
Yes.
stops having context. So
Hmm.
even if the behavior or the actions change, the
Yeah.
themes and the
Yeah.
qualities and the lessons are still there.
Yes.
So we learn to be able to see ourselves in these stories, even if,
Hmm.
you know, we don't know what it's like to live in 17th century, or, we don't know what it was like to live 4,000 years ago, but we can
Yeah.
still see the themes are still so
Yeah.
applicable.
Yeah. Let me tell you, there's so many things I want to ask you already that you done said in the first 8 minutes, or maybe seven, because I know I took up a minute with your intro. But you just said something so key where, right, you see yourself in the story. And in Hidden by Moonlight, y'all, I mean, it was like, I felt like it was a key that unlocked something inside of me. And that's why I started buying them and giving them out to people. And it was just like, you need to read this because it's going to lock something in you. And I couldn't give it to just everybody. It
Mhm.
was certain people where I was like, you need this. If I saw them stuck in a certain way, you need this. Somebody I let borrow one of my books and I know who it is. And I was like, I have to have my own because I have to reference it,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
So let's talk. Well, first, let's do some teaching. Let's back up. Your
Mhm.
name, High Priestess, all of this. What does this mean? Because some people are hearing these words for the first time, and we want to make sure they understand.
Sure. So I'm a practitioner of traditional African religion, and in particular, I practice the Afrokemetic expression of ATR.
Hmm.
So, Kemet is what is the African name for ancient Egypt.
Hmm.
And so those of us who are modern day walk in that lifestyle in the modern day, we refer to ourselves as Kemetic. we say that we Ankh and Ma'at, we live in righteousness.
Mhm.
We live in truth. We live in harmony. And that's
Mhm.
essentially our spiritual goal, is to live in harmony with ourselves, first and foremost, to live in harmony with other people, and
Mhm.
then to live in harmony with nature and the
Mhm.
cosmos, the universe as a greater whole, to be able to contribute to it as well as receive from it, but in the
Mhm.
sacred reciprocity that leaves behind balance, right? So we don't
Mhm.
take without giving. And that goes to how we take care of ourselves, how we take care of each other, how we take care of the universe, how we,
Mhm.
how we take care of plants, animals, everything, right?
Yeah.
Everything, how we respect the cycles is all in divine harmony. So how do we
Mhm.
give? And then also how do we receive? And that's again, fairly universal theme that you find in African
Mhm.
religion. And again, the way that I practice ATR is through the comedic expression. Um, so that's my cultural expression.
Thank you so much for that explanation.
Mhm.
Thank you. Yeah, it's so important. It's funny, on the last show that I was just doing with my younger brother, we were talking about the interconnected piece of things. And that's
Mhm.
something that Edmund always talks about, things being interconnected and that things don't exist in a silo. And even as a leadership coach, many times I'm brought in to help people move from working in silos to working to being connected. And
Mhm.
so, as you were saying, these are universal themes that show up in all spaces if we take
Yeah.
the time to look at them and honor them.
Yeah, I always love that word interconnected because it's so valid in terms
Mhm.
of our existence on the planet. Like none of us are really successful on our own. All of us
Mhm.
have support from, you know, from government, from family, from friends, from
Mhm.
community, from managers. If we're, like, if you may not have support from your manager, but someone else is getting support from a manager, you're
Hello.
getting support from your mom. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like all of us
Yes.
get support from someplace.
Yes.
All of us, like nobody, like you said, nobody exists in a silo. Like we're
No,
all interconnected.
that's right.
And and really in the indigenous community, um, respecting the interconnectedness of all things was essential, right, to our
Mhm.
collective success,
Mm.
because we didn't consider ourselves successful. Like if
Yes.
I'm successful but you ain't okay, then I'm not successful, right?
That's right.
And
Come on.
so yeah, yeah. So the
Mhm.
way that capitalist structures want us to live in terms of being really independent and
Mhm.
individual is
Mhm.
very opposite of
Yes.
the way that most indigenous cultures,
Yes.
including African cultures, thrived. They
Yes.
thrived through connection to others, through
Mhm.
connection to community, connection to family, connection to ancestors, connection to the
Mhm.
creator. They
Mhm.
thrive through connection.
Yeah.
And, it is one of my beliefs, I know one of yours, one of
Mhm.
Baba Moja's, that as we move back into our indigenous selves, we move back, that we rebuild those connections, that we
Yes.
strengthen those connections and move away from thinking of ourselves as just individuals, dog eat dog world, I got to get mine. Like, no, how do we thrive? How do
Yes.
we
Yes.
persevere? How do we become prosperous and successful? How do I celebrate your wins?
Mhm.
How do you pull me up when you have a win?
Mhm.
Then you reach back and pull me up. How do we support each
Mhm.
other? And do we get to the promised land together?
Yes. Girl, you gonna make me pull out all types of things, rings and second hand things. Yes. Yes. Yeah, they saying, "Well, we thought we was hearing about an author. We didn't know he was going to church." Like, we
Yes, I can't help it. I'm sorry. I will say my spiritual background too. I am, bred from my ancestry. I'm bred from pastors. My
Oh,
great
wow.
grandfather on my mother's side, it was the Reverend Lewis B. Russell, and my
Okay.
great grandfather on my father's side was Bishop Henry Bunton. So I have a very long legacy of religious leadership and study and that spirit. And so,
Mhm.
like when I get talking about spirit, sometimes I just be going.
Go.
That's just speaking through me.
Yes, no apologies, all welcome. Look, if I had to change the name of the show tonight and call it something else, then that's what we gonna do. That's the look, because like I said, when that onk over top of that microphone, I already knew it was gonna be on and popping today.
Good
So,
thing.
so much is said right there. And Leslie put up here, she said, Yes. If you are not, then I'm not.
That's so true, Leslie. I love that.
Hmm.
Good
And
thing.
I remember years ago, I was speaking and somebody raised their hand and they said, but you've already made it. They said, you're a doctor and this and that and everything else. I said, I haven't made it if you haven't made it. Like we're in this together. My work, I
Absolutely.
was saying earlier, I said, I'm a student teacher. I'm forever a student. I'm always learning. And then
Mhm.
I'm teaching what I'm learning, right? So I'm
Mhm.
playing both roles fluidly all the time.
Absolutely.
So, yes. All right. Now, in this interconnected piece, and you are all that you are, and discovering even more as life continues to go on. Happy New Year, first of all.
Same to you.
Thank you.
Yes.
And you do readings.
I do. I know that's one of the ways that you and I have been connected over the
Yes,
years. Yeah.
yes. An
And
amazing reading. I go back and read mine all the time and see the applicability of it. I really do. I keep it next to the bed.
I love
And
that.
then I read it and it's just like, yep, there it is. There it is. There it is.
Good
Mhm.
thing. Yeah, divination is one of the ways that we allow spirit to speak to us, to allow, God, the creator spirit, to provide us with guidance and
Mhm.
insight in a moment when we just might need a little bit of extra clarity,
Yep.
because that's all it is. Sometimes things are foggy for us.
Mhm.
We're afraid or we're unsure or it's really risky. And we're
Mhm.
nervous to take this really risky step because we can't afford for it to go wrong, right?
Yes.
There are times when you just could benefit from having some extra confidence before
Mhm.
you make a major like life decision. And then there are just other times where you just want confirmation that you're
Yeah.
on the right track,
Yeah.
And so divination in a broad sense really is an opportunity to hear from the creator, to hear from spirit, to,
Mhm.
to hear confirmation, to get guidance, to get warnings sometimes
Mhm.
that'll say like,
Mhm.
did you watch out for this?
Right.
Did you watch out for that? I remember a few years ago I was looking at buying a house and the warning was, I don't think you crunched those numbers good enough. You need to go
Mhm.
back and look at those numbers again.
Mhm.
And I went back and looked at it and I was like, hold up, something ain't adding, the math ain't mathing. So, sometimes spirit is like trying to stop you, save you from yourself,
Yes.
you know?
Yes.
So, so at the start of the new cycles, right? So
Mhm.
the Gregorian New Year, we have the Kemetic New Year, things
Mhm.
like that. We always do readings
Okay.
to give us and give the community like a broad roadmap of
Mhm.
insight that could help them to make good decisions throughout the course of the year. What are some things to watch out for? What are some things that you need to do? What are the things you
Mhm.
need to avoid?
Mhm.
What are the energies of the year that are going to be
Mhm.
guiding us and are
Mhm.
going to be supporting us? How do we live in tune with those energies? Because
Mhm.
again, everything's interconnected. So if we're living in tune with those energies, and we're allowing ourselves to be guided in the flow, right?
Mhm.
Not against the flow, but in the flow.
Yes.
Then we can guarantee our success because we're moving in accordance with, we're in harmony
Right.
with the universe,
That's
right?
right.
With ourselves and the creator. Like
Yes.
how can we go wrong if we're in harmony with the creator,
That's right.
right?
That's
So
right.
so the reading of the year helps to give us a roadmap to
Okay.
help ensure success and to help clarify some things as we step into this new cycle. And I know there
Mm.
are a lot of people who say that the Gregorian New Year doesn't count as a new cycle, but it does influence and impact our lives to some.
Mhm.
So I always say that every start of a cycle is something we should be thinking about how we step. So spring equinox, that's a cycle. How are we going to use
Yes.
that energy? Summer
Yes.
solstice, that's a cycle. Fall
Yes.
equinox, winter solstice, your birthday, that's
Yes.
a cycle. Lunar New Year, that's a cycle. These are all different cycles that impact
Mhm.
us in different ways. And the more we know about them and the more we're aware of the movement, then we can be again in alignment with those cycles and use those
Yes.
energies to our benefit.
Yeah. Yeah. Edmund always talk. I should have had him on the show. I keep talking his name. Look, if he's listening, I know he's giggling. So he always says, tell the energy what to do. And right, it's important that we recognize, as you're saying, the energy and the impact that it has on us so that we can work with it, right? Not
Mhm.
against it, right? We can work with it, as you're mentioning, being in harmony with it for our greatest good, for our greatest
Mhm.
outcome.
Mhm.
And so you talked about writing. Writing is an energy that came to you very early on in your life, me as well. I was in grade school writing stories for kindergarten kids, and my teachers gave me permission by the second and third grade to go down to the kindergarten and nursery school classes and read to them. So now at that point, I had no idea that I would become an author. I just knew I had these stories about creation and why things were the way that they were. In my versions, the grass is green because Jesus was clumsy and he didn't put up his paint like he was supposed to, and he kicked it over and it fell down the portal and it made the grass green.
I
So
love
that
that. I love that.
and I had my little illustrations, and I'd go down because I went to Catholic school, and
Mhm.
so I'd go down and I'd give my stories. Now later on in life, all of my, ironically, I didn't think about it, right, but all my covers are all nature related.
Yeah, look at that. Look at that.
So
I
the
love that
theme,
that thread of connection.
yeah, yeah. So you started out very early on. You then became a playwright unbeknownst to yourself, right?
Yes, yes. Mhm.
In middle school. And then, as you're saying, you did your writing, your journaling. So this constant. And let me say this, the reading that you all did for me in Edmond years ago, that was handwritten too. So, I mean, you write in so many facets of your life.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
it led you to this fantastic novel, Hidden by Moonlight. Tell the people about this book and this beautiful picture on the back, y'all.
Thank you. Thank you, thank
Go
you.
ahead.
Yeah. So Hidden by Moonlight, I was inspired by an ancient story about most people know the names as Osiris, Iris, and Horus. But
Mhm,
those are the Greek names, those are the more popular names in the modern era.
mm,
But the African names are Asar, Aset, and Haru. And
mhm,
I was inspired by their story. I was inspired by, I feel like a lot of people are really take a lot of like inspiration from that story in terms of Osset's devotion to her husband and
mhm,
her like her resilience through this challenge, and
mhm.
Haru coming back to triumph and to be successful. In many ways you see themes of that story
Oh, yeah.
replicate themselves. Like I'm sitting here and I'm like, I think that's actually the theme of Hamlet, right? Like
Mhm,
right?
uh-huh.
Or Othello, right? Like one of them, they
Real
come up with
talk.
Shakespearean stories, like
Yes.
they come up and here we are thousands of years before Shakespeare, we have this story of of a son having to avenge his father, right?
Mhm,
And
mhm.
and again, it's a timeless story that is
Yes,
rooted in ancient African principle.
yes.
And so I was really very inspired by that story. Nebt-Het is one of the key players in that story. The Greeks called her
Mhm,
Nephthys,
mhm,
and but her role in the story, the writings that we have remaining from ancient
mhm,
Kemet, her role was really small.
mhm,
And given, what we know about the Kemetic tradition, how books were destroyed by the Greeks, how writings were burned, how the Greeks came in and changed and influenced things.
mm,
And so what we have left is only a very small percentage of what
mhm,
the African people of that time really contributed to their culture.
mhm.
I really thought to myself, well, what is her perspective? And really, what is
Yeah,
her story?
yeah, yeah.
This is a character here. This is a she has a frame of reference. She has a
Mhm,
perspective. She has a point of view.
mhm.
And as soon as I asked that question, she started to tell me her point of view. She was like, okay, you listening? Let me
Right.
tell you. And so then I was like, okay. And I'll tell you, it's there are moments where I think to myself, like, I'm a writer. This is my creativity. This is my creative lens. This is my imagination. And then there are other times when I go back and I look and I'm like, I didn't make this up. This is how you
Mhm.
make it. Like
Right.
something came from,
Spoke
spoke
to
to me
you.
and through me.
Mhm,
And I
mhm.
chose to document it. It feels very much that otherworldly sometimes
Yeah,
read.
yeah.
And so I'm just very grateful that I was allowed to be open to let
Mhm.
the words flow through me in that
Yes.
way,
Yes.
so
Yeah, it is a journey, y'all, to go through this book and connect with it, and look at the themes that come up in the book as you talk like relationship themes, domestic violence themes, single, motherhood, hiding. I mean, there's just so many current day themes
Mhm.
that people can connect with in this story. So many. I want to put up here, you're getting a lot of hellos, so I
Yeah.
want to make sure you see them. Okay.
Yes. Okay, my Akira. Greetings, Kelly.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Oh, that's me. And then there's Lisa here. So, and if
Greetings, Lisa.
people who are joining us, if you can put in the chat where you're joining us from, that'll be great as well. And if you have any questions, please be sure to ask. We will get to as many as we can. All right. So
Mhm.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, again, thinking about the themes that are really relevant to modern day. As I listened to her story, she just Nebt-Het is relatable because she's a woman, right? She's a
Mhm.
woman who's married to someone who isn't who she wanted to be married to. She
Mhm.
has choices made for her that she doesn't necessarily choose for herself, but she also doesn't always know what she would choose for herself if she had the option to choose for herself.
Mm.
And I think that when you get down to it, again, this is a story of thousands of years old, but people today don't always know what they want. Like, I want to choose for myself, but I don't really know what I would choose. That's a
Come on.
very common and relatable
That's
thing.
real.
We're all going through that. So I think just being able to dig into that and to be able to explore what that looks like as
Mhm.
a writer was really valuable for me. And
Yeah.
also, and again, as a spiritual person, that part of my journey, those meditations, those reflections were valuable. As a writer, also, it was valuable because it was just showing me things about myself and about my consciousness, my perspective that I needed to also examine and learn, like, who am I and what do I want? Sometimes we
Mhm.
get into spaces where we identify ourselves with, like, oh, I'm this person's sister, I'm this person's daughter, I'm this person's wife, I'm this person's
Mhm.
friend. But who are you as, like,
Who
just
am
you? You
I?
are just you.
Yes.
And I think especially in modern culture, 2024, women in particular struggle with that. Black women struggle with it even more. Anything
Mm.
that women as a whole struggle with, Black women struggle with more. So, so Black women really have to take steps back and be like, I'm not just your
Come
mama and
on.
your wife and your daughter.
Come
I
on.
also have an identity and
Yes.
a purpose, and
Yeah.
a life of my own. And I have to figure out what that looks like and how do I tend to myself in my own garden
Mm.
and how do I feel fulfilled. And making sure that you do that. Never-Het's main conflict in the story is that she doesn't always do that in the right ways. And so
That's
we
right.
get the experience of witnessing the consequences that come
Mhm.
when how you choose to answer those questions, um, you know, isn't
Yeah.
really the right way to go.
Yeah, yeah, right. It's living and it's learning,
Mhm.
and that's what I tell people. We got to make sure we live and we learn, not just live and live, because there
Mhm.
are consequences, and consequences are good and bad, right? They're really neutral. It's how what you ascribe to them. They're just events that happen because of something, right?
Exactly.
So the name of the book is Hidden. Where were we here? Hidden by Moonlight. I'm trying to get out of the light, but the moonlight, my lamps is kicking off. It's Hidden by Moonlight.
Yeah.
So we have people joining us from all over. Thank you. Just so you know, we got people from Mississippi, from Oklahoma, from Hillside, New Jersey, from Philly. So coming in from all over. From
Give
yep, yep, yep.
thanks. Give thanks. I love
So
that.
um, but yeah, to your point, it is so important that we take time and reflect on who we are and get clarity on who we are and who we continue to evolve to be.
Mhm.
And when I was, I think about 11 or 12 years old, I remember going to my mother and asking her, "Who? When do I get to be me?" And she said, "What do you mean?" And I said, "First, I'm somebody's daughter, then I'm somebody's sister, Eventually, I'm somebody's wife, and then I'm somebody's mother. When do I get to be me? And she said, you'll have to figure that out. And I
Mhm.
was like, okay, and I grabbed it by the horns and I spent my life constantly clarifying who I am each step of the way.
Mhm.
And to your point, it's so important that we take time to do that because I know I've watched you evolve on social media in some ways that I said, is she doing what I think she's doing? Come on.
Yes.
Do you care to share?
I don't mind sharing.
Go
I
for it.
started pole dancing a little more than 4 years ago now,
Hmm.
and yeah, to your point, it was part of me finding and creating space for myself as a woman. It really
Hmm.
was, and finding and creating space for me to figure out who I am and what I want. It
Hmm.
honestly didn't start because I wanted to pole dance. It actually started because after I finished writing
Yeah,
Hidden by
this is what
Moonlight.
Kelly put up, if you
Yeah.
can see. But yeah,
After
you weren't expecting that, y'all. Go ahead.
no, shock and awe. But after I published Hidden by Moonlight, I really started feeling like I needed to dance.
Mm,
Um, and so I took a little time. I didn't take dance classes right away, but then eventually I started taking dance classes. I took belly dancing, I took West African dance, I took
mm,
hip hop dance. Like I was just taking different dance classes. I was trying to find like what is this desire that I have to
mhm,
dance and what is this thing that I need to find? And so I was just
mhm.
taking a bunch of different classes, look like trying to figure it out, like where am I going?
Yes.
And then I went to a pole studio in towards the end of September 2019,
Mhm,
and I was like, oh, I love this. Like I just immediately fell in love. I fell in love with the structure. It's very structured and like
mm,
as a as a um as an art form. There's like all these
mhm.
different rules to keep you safe and you got to do the
Yes.
move correctly and you got to there's all this technique and that really
Mhm,
appealed to me. And then there also is just so much fluidity and so
mm,
much like flexibility and the like again living in harmony and being in
mhm,
flow. And
mhm,
so, which was part of the lesson that I needed to learn from it, right? It
mm,
was about the flow, how to flow better, how to release better.
mhm,
And so I just fell in love with it, honestly. I fell in love with it as my own like personal like art form. And
mhm,
eventually I wanted to share my journey. I've been just having so much fun with it
mhm,
and enjoying, my growth and some of the things I've been doing there that, I started sharing my videos on Instagram
mhm.
and things like that. So, and I also really think it was important not to hide it because I
Yeah.
think that people tend to have really rigid ideas, perspectives, and expectations of spiritual people. Like if you're spiritual, you can't also, be sexual. And if
Yes.
you're spiritual, then you can't also like money. And if you're
Right.
spiritual, then you can't also like be vain and like getting your hair and your nails
Right.
and being pretty.
Right.
So, like if you're spiritual, you got to do the head wraps and the
Right.
long
And a
skirt.
mud cloth
Yeah,
and a
right.
right potato
And
sack and just
and
be
there's
out.
very rigid expectations of like what spirituality looks like.
Mhm.
Not for remembering that spiritual people are people
Hello.
who live in the same world you live in and listen to music and watch television, right? And so
Yes.
those things don't stop me from having a personality and having desires and having wants and having feelings. Like being spiritual doesn't stop me from being a person who has
Yes.
desire and who has
Yes.
right. And so how do I have the freedom to both meditate, reflect, journal, pray,
Mhm.
and also express my desires, my wants, my
Mhm.
sensuality, like live in my body and enjoy movement.
Yes.
And it doesn't stop, it doesn't mean I'm less spiritual.
That's
You
right.
know?
Yes. Look, Leslie put it in there. I was in the process of grabbing it. Yes. I told y'all.
Leslie said, Tambourine, please. I appreciate y'all. But yeah, I mean, I felt like if I hit it, it would be like saying there's something wrong with it. It's like saying there's something I need to be ashamed of. And I
Mhm.
definitely don't think it's anything, listen, first of all beings every single one of us is created because of sex. So we really shouldn't be acting like sex is like this
It's not
shameful,
part of our
harmful,
energy.
nasty thing.
Right.
Like it's a natural part of life, right? So for a woman to say, I'm going to embrace my body, my sensuality, I'm going to see my body as beautiful, I'm going to
Yes.
love my body because it's strong and capable of amazing things. Like, what's wrong with that? You know, and so
Nothing.
I was like, if I hide this, I'm like, it's almost like I'm saying I'm ashamed of it. So I can't, I got to a space where I was like, I don't really feel like I can hide this. I don't feel good about hiding it anymore. So yeah.
Yeah, we gonna set it off again. Come on, y'all. Everybody done thrown them in there. Lisa done thrown them in there.
Yes,
Kelly done thrown them in
yes,
there.
Kelly.
Yes. Yeah, it's so true. And in part, you answered my next question to you was what happened to you and for you from writing this book and the fact this was unlocked, right? And no longer hidden. So what not I mean, you can continue with this because obviously we do need to embrace the fullness of who we are and stop sectioning ourselves off as if we're not interconnected with all parts of ourselves.
Oh my goodness, that's such a big question. And I love that you asked it. After I published, I really got thrust into my own healing journey. So
Mm.
yes, and pole dancing is a part of that, right?
Mhm.
So, but I definitely started focusing more on myself and my own health and my own healing. And up until that point, it, I think it's honest I'm not trying, without blaming anybody else. I think it is honest to admit that before that, I was very much living like how I thought people wanted me to live. And
Mm.
that's still something that I struggle with. You
Mhm.
know, I'm the oldest daughter. If you're the oldest child, you know,
Mhm.
your parents had expectations, watch your brothers and
Mhm.
sisters, help
Mhm.
them with their homework, help them, right?
Mhm.
So you learn to take care of other people, right?
Yes. Yes.
I became a priestess. I learned how to take care of other people, how to be
Mhm.
present for other people. You know,
Mhm.
you become conditioned, or you start to figure out or start to think about putting other people ahead of yourself. After publishing Hidden by Moonlight, I started reframing and putting myself, honestly, I would say it's only in the last 2 years I've really been putting myself first. But first I had to go from putting myself last to putting myself like seventh, then sixth, then fifth, then fourth. You know what I'm saying? So like over
Yes.
the past few years I've been climbing the ladder.
Yes. Yes.
Myself has
Real talk.
been the ladder. And
Yes.
and that was, I think, you know, gosh, I wrote this book that's full of all these lessons that like came through me, and then over years and over time those lessons
Mhm.
started being reflected in how I live
Mhm.
my life. It
Mhm.
didn't happen at first. I wasn't already living those lessons, but the awareness that those lessons had to breathe through me and that I had to be a reflection of that came. And
Yeah.
um, and it is when the spirit just got on me. The spirit was like, and now we have to do this work. And
And that's
it wasn't even me. It was like spirit was like, and thank you for that. And now what you have to do, this is your new assignment. You wrote the book, that was your first assignment. Your second assignment is
that's right. You gonna dance it out. You gonna work it out.
yes, exactly.
That's
Exactly.
it.
So I do my best to try to be obedient to spirit, as I think we
Mhm.
all do
Mhm.
when we are striving to live in harmony with spirit.
Yes.
We do our best to try to live obediently. And so that's been my last few years. That's been what that
Yeah.
looks like.
My a good friend of mine and Kelly's Pastor Carlton McCarter, he says that obedience is the highest form of worship.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that resonated with me because obedience is so key for me. I know life of being obedient. I know what it feels like when I'm not. And when I'm not, it is out of harmony, it is
Mm-hmm.
out of flow. And
Mm-hmm.
so being in and living by spirit and with spirit, it just feels so much better. The harvest is so much greater, right? And so hence my second book, Live by the Spirit, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Inspired thoughts. to encourage people to pay attention to when spirit is speaking to you, when spirit is
Mhm.
speaking through you, right? When spirit is speaking on your behalf, get to know what that language is for yourself. So now let's talk about this writing process. This book, and as I mentioned for the top of the show, this is the second time I've had the opportunity to interview you about this book. The first time was when it first came out. Now it was published in 2015. When did you start the writing process? How long did it take you?
I started, I want to say about midway through 2012. I
Mhm.
started, and I sort of just wrote a little bit at a time as it came to me for maybe about the first year.
Okay.
And then by the time we got to maybe about a year and a half, I just
Mhm.
sort of, I'll do a little writing here, I'll do a little writing there, as
Mhm.
it came. And then by early 2014, I was like, okay, we need to put a date on this.
Yes.
And so then I started to give myself deadlines. And for me, those deadlines really worked. I would
Mhm.
say, we're going to have this chapter finished by X date. And I would give
Okay.
myself those 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks to finish the chapter. And
Mhm.
one thing that helped with that too is it stopped me from going back to do editing because
Mhm.
um before I started doing the deadlines, I would write and then I would go back and read it and change it and read it and
Mhm.
change it and
Mhm.
change it again. And so I was like, oh, you're not moving on. I'm not moving on. I'm not moving forward. I'm not getting the next part out because I'm so busy
You stuck.
criticizing my work.
Yes. Yes.
So I had to say, you know what, we gotta stop this. We gotta stop
Mhm.
with the overworking of it, and let's just let it be what it is. And so then I finished the chapters in 2014, and then I still did go back and do editing at that point.
Okay.
But then it was done, right? And so now you
Mhm.
have a manuscript. So now it's different looking at it as a complete work,
Mhm.
and editing it from that view. I was really fortunate once it was finished to have people in my life who served as beta readers. So they
Great.
read it before it was published. They gave me feedback, and I used some of that feedback to do editing.
Okay.
Also had a member of my temple, Saniket Menta, who
Mhm.
is a really talented artist, and he designed
Mhm.
the cover for me. So
Oh.
that artwork there comes from him. His
Mhm.
design company is called Conscious Creations.
Mhm.
Conscious is spelled with a K. Creations. He's on Facebook, Instagram, etc. So he's
Okay.
really amazing designer, and designed that cover for me. And I worked with another person who helped me with the interior design, like just making sure that everything was. I want, even though it's self-published, I still wanted everything to look really professional. I
Yeah.
didn't work with a publishing company. I chose to self-publish,
Okay.
because I wanted to make sure my book got out there. And I know a lot
Mhm.
about the publishing industry. It's very competitive these days, very difficult to break into. If you're
Mhm.
lucky enough to get a literary agent to represent you, that still
Mhm.
doesn't confirm or guarantee that you're going to get a publisher to publish your
Mhm.
work. And so I did some soul searching, and I was like, you know what? I think I want to just put it out there anyway and see what happens.
Mhm.
And so I'm gonna do it myself, but I still wanted it to look really professional. And I'm
Yeah.
very grateful to the people who supported me, helped me get it done. And then we consulted the Cosmos, and we're like, what's a
Mhm.
good day to publish? And so that's July 2015. So that's so that became our when and where. And so I'm
Yes.
really grateful, it all kind of came together for that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so incredible. And I remember you contacted Edmund and, because I was doing Dr. Walls and Friends on Blog Talk Radio at
Mhm.
that point.
Yeah.
And so you sent me a copy and I was rushing to get through it to make sure. So when you came on as a guest, we could talk about it. And then literally in 2016, Edmund and I went away for my birthday. And he was saying, "What do you want to do for your birthday?" I said, "I just want to sit on the beach and read Hidden by Moonlight." I said, "That's all I want to do." And literally, that's what we did for my birthday in the Bahamas in 2016. It is the only book that I took with me. So that in my journal.
I
And
love that. Always gotta take a journal. I love
okay,
that.
always.
Yes,
And
yes.
that's what I did. I sat on the beach for a week and I read it and loved every minute of it because this way I could take it in. The first time
Mhm.
it was like rushing to try to make sure I had content and conversation with you about it. But it was like I just wanted to embrace it because I, even in the rushing, I enjoyed it. But it was like, let me see what are the things that I missed, what are the nuances and so forth. So,
Mhm.
and like I said, it is a book that just touched me in a way that I can't say other books have done. I felt very personally connected to it. And as I've met, I said it at the top of the show, as I've met different people as they're on their walk, it was just like, I need you to read this book. I need you to get this book. It's there's something very magical about it, and so now that I hear even the story of how it was downloaded to
Mhm.
you, I think there's that piece of her that's saying this person has an ear for me and my story empathetically, right? That resonates. And so therefore you can connect with it. So I thank you so much for listening and writing her words.
So, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, yeah, that means a lot to me. Thank you.
You're
Yeah,
welcome.
yeah, I love
So
that.
now your middle school writing turned into some plays. Do you have any film ideas around this particular work?
You know, oh my gosh, around this work, I would
Mm,
love to see Hidden by Moonlight be um put on the screen. I think
mhm,
there's so many moments in there that are so epic and huge. And I
mhm.
also think about, we always talk about how much representation matters in film.
Yes.
I know that we've had some really beautiful moments in the last few years of Black people being able to see themselves on screen in these really powerful roles and these really
Mhm.
powerful places and positions. But I don't think it hurts to have more. I don't think
Yeah.
there is a such thing as too much,
Yeah.
as far as what that does for for the psyche of young Black people, and how it,
Mhm.
or shoot, or even older Black people,
That's
what it
right.
does for our psyche and what it does
Mhm.
to make us feel good about ourselves. So I
Mhm.
definitely would love to see it adapted.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
That
Yeah.
would be so good. All right, we putting it out there. We putting
Yes.
it out there.
Yes.
Okay. So may the right people come to you with the ability to do that because you're right, the representation. And I think honestly, across cultures, across races is so important because when we hear truth, it resonates with us. It doesn't matter where it's coming from. I had the opportunity to do some work with some Quakers years ago, and that was one of the things sitting in the meeting house was that when the truth rises, you speak the truth, and it sits, right? And that's
Absolutely.
it. And so a film like this, a book like this, we never know what's going it's going to unlock in
Mhm.
someone and how it's going to help them on their journey. It's the relatability, as we talked earlier, the themes that are in the story are themes that people can connect with,
Mhm.
and just even her, the being hidden, the fact that people didn't know who she was from time to time, right? But as you mentioned, she didn't know who she was. And as
Mhm.
she became comfortable with who she was, as we all are, then we can finally come out and show the world who we are. We can look in the mirror and see us. As a clinician, this is something that I encourage my clients to do all the time. Go look in the mirror, identify those things about yourself that you like about yourself, that you love about yourself. Take time, reflect on your life. Get clear on what you're doing, where you're going, what you want to do. This is so
Mhm.
important that we do this regularly. It's the beginning of the year, as far as January is concerned. Now's the optimal time to do this,
Mhm.
but it's also important that we do it regularly throughout our lives. Go ahead. What's coming up for you?
No, I'm just sitting here resonating with what you're saying. I really do appreciate that. Again, I think there is so much value to honoring cycles. So yeah, I think it's important for us to always be reflective,
Hmm.
of where we are and where we're going.
Yeah,
Um, being careful and being measured and steady with every step is only going to benefit us.
come
So for
on.
free.
That's right. And being conscious about it, right? It's
Mhm.
our life, literally. It is our
Mhm.
life to lead, to co create, to design, and for it to be full. In my first book, I'm going to sound like one of those things, right? Not only am I the author, I'm also a client, right? But in my first book, The Greatest Soul Journey, one of the things that I say is life is spelled Life, and the F stands for fullness. And if you
Mm,
take the F out of life, then you have a lie,
mhm,
Lie. So
mm.
we want to make sure that we're living our full life.
Yes. Now you teaching. Where my
Come
I
on.
don't have
But
tambourines. I
that's all
gotta
right.
have some tambourines for you.
Kelly said that's called a Dr. Wall's couch moment. Hashtag
Yes.
truth.
I
Right.
love that. That's a good moment. I love that. Ooh, yes. But yeah,
Yes.
so thank you because I really do love that. And I do feel like Hidden by Moonlight very much fits into what you just said. It is absolutely the story of a woman who just wants to live a fuller life.
Hmm.
Someone who just wants to feel like her life has meaning and
Yes.
purpose. I think
Yes.
all of us want to feel that way. We all want to feel like the work that we're doing and the contributions that we do matter.
Hmm.
And what's a really interesting thing is that something that I've learned over the years is that everything that everybody does matters, no matter
Yep.
how small that they might perceive it to be, or how small you might perceive it to be, no matter how big you might perceive a contribution to be, or how big someone else perceives it to be. So, like, that's us ascribing
Hmm.
value to it, ascribing
That's
size to
right.
it. That's us determining certain things that
Hmm.
have nothing to do with the importance of every single contribution matters. Every single
Everything.
thing in the cosmos matters. There's
Yes.
nothing that is too small or too big. There is nothing that outweighs or outshines anybody else.
That's right.
Everything matters.
That's
Everything
right.
we do, everything we say, everything we are
That's right.
matters. We
Come
matter
on.
so much. And it's so important for us to make sure that we reinforce that understanding in ourselves on a regular basis, how much we matter and how
Hello.
when we just be who we are, that's
Hmm.
all we're called to do. That's all we're called. So, these grand ideas about being famous and being billionaires and changing the world, like you're gonna change your corner of the world. And that's all you was ever meant to do.
Hmm.
And that's
Yeah.
enough and that's okay.
Yes, it is.
Just
Yes.
make peace with who you are and
Mm.
where you are.
Hmm.
Be in the right place at the right time, right?
Come on.
So
Come on. If y'all up in here right now, you in the right place at the right time.
that's right. Give
They
thanks. You
they for
definitely
showing
are.
it.
Yes.
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 It's so, and it's
Definitely.
funny as you were saying that. I was like, yeah, we're called matter, right? In science, we are matter. So let's get reconnected with who we are. So we matter because we are matter,
Exactly.
right?
Yes. Exactly. So nobody ever has to prove their value or
Hmm.
demonstrate their worth. We all have worth, period.
Yes.
That's inherent. That's who we are. And
Hmm.
then each of us figures out the journey of life is all about how we figure out how we live our purpose. None of us
Hmm.
know how to do it. We all sitting here trying to figure it out. So some of us look like we got it figured out more than others, but no, none of us really know what we're doing. We all making it up as we go along, and that's the journey, right? That's
Yes.
literally the journey. That's what we're
Yes.
all here to do. So
Yes. We are writing our lives. Right?
exactly.
It's scripted, and
Mhm.
we get a chance to have, those pens used to be called eraser mates, or we have a pencil, we can erase those things once we it's like, "No, that's not what I meant," right? We take the time, the reflection is the edit.
Yeah.
Right, we get a chance to review it and go, would I choose that again? Or would I make an adjustment? Is that the way that I wanted to say something or do it? Was that in harmony with everything else that I was doing? Or did I just riff and do an impromptu something like a jazz moment?
Mhm.
We get a chance to do that. And it's
Yeah.
fantastic that we have it. So what's next? What's next for you?
Oof, what's next for me? So I actually have two books that I'm working on. One is called The Feast of Sekhmet, and it is
Oh,
about the story of Sekhmet. It is the story of her descent to earth. For those of you who don't know who Sekhmet is,
teach.
she represents the wrath of God, the wrath
Hmm.
of the Most High, and she is sent. Her wrath, that anger is sent to earth to punish those who live outside of the will of God, right?
Mm.
Um, but I want to tell the story from the perspectives of the people who are being punished or who have to deal with the experience of her wrath. So
Oh.
I am absolutely working on that. And the other thing that I'm working on is The Great Falcon, which is a story about Haru, who is one of the brothers of
Mhm.
Asar, Aset, Nebt-Het.
Mhm.
He is one of their brothers, and he has a very small role in Hidden by Moonlight. He's not really present. His
Mm.
assignment and his purpose takes him to other parts of the world.
Mhm.
So I want to explore where is he at and what was he doing. And
Mhm.
interestingly enough, Haru's story is really a story of it's really a love story. Like honestly,
Really?
it's really a love story. Yeah. I thought it was going to be another like warrior story about, like from a man's point of view or a masculine point of view of like finding yourself and finding your purpose
Mhm.
and finding peace with being sent away. But that's not his story at all. I mean, his story is so different, and it
Really?
really is it's really becoming a love story. So um I have not been giving myself deadlines. I gotta admit, I am right now just in the flow of the
Mhm.
writing.
Okay.
But those are my projects, my writing projects that I'm working on. And then of course I'm still available. Um, as a priestess, I'm available for spiritual readings, as you know.
Mhm.
Folks can reach out to me for readings, for guidance and insight in that regard. If they're interested, curious, I'm still pole dancing. If folks want to watch my pole dancing journey or join me on with a pole dancing class, y'all are welcome to do that. Hit me on my Instagram. Um, and yeah, I guess that's about it. That's what I
What's
got
the
going on.
what is the best way for people to follow you?
Yes. So on Instagram, you can follow me at Netter. So that's HMTNTR. So HM is in Mary, N is in Nancy, TR, Netter. And then to get copies of Hidden by Moonlight, you can order them from my website, hiddenbymoonlight.com. And those I will send you out a signed copy if you order it from me. You can also order it on Amazon, and get it on your Kindle or get it where, if you have like a digital like ebook reader, it's available that way as well, paperback and ebooks, um, for purchase.
Mhm.
All of those places. Yeah.
Fantastic. Do you ever go out and do any like book events, or do you have anything at the temple where people can actually come meet you and do a signing and things like that?
Goodness, I haven't done one in a while, but I might have to. I may have to. The last one I did was at Source of Knowledge bookstore in Newark, so I may have to talk
Mhm.
to Patrice over at Source of Knowledge, Black-owned bookstore. So shout out to them. They've been such good supporters of my work and also of so many other Black authors. So I
Okay.
love shouting them out. So I may have to tap her on the shoulder so we can do another
Yeah.
book event. Yeah,
And then maybe I know y'all come down to Philly sometimes for
we
different
do. Yeah,
events.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
there's Harriet's bookstore, which is a black-owned
Okay.
bookstore, named after Harriet Tubman
Mhm.
on Girard Avenue, so you can look them up. They do carry The Adventures of Froggy T and Bunny,
Uh-huh.
and they carry a sister friend of mine. She just did Digital Money Demystified, Tanya Evans. And they carry her book. So that may be someone to reach out to as well.
I
Um,
definitely will. I
yeah,
appreciate the connect.
yeah, no problem. And we can talk offline. I'll send information and so forth. But I'm super excited. You have people saying, I'm looking forward to reading both of these books. They're saying, I can't wait to read it. So it sounds like you know your process. You start writing, but then you really start producing when you give yourself those deadlines.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
I'm
Yeah.
just saying, it might be, we the people
Yeah.
are ready.
Yeah.
So we,
Yes. When spirit is ready, it comes.
yes, of
We'll
course.
get there.
Of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah. I
What
appreciate
is
your patience with me though.
what genre would you call this type of writing?
I usually categorize, see, I don't actually consider it to be like fiction fantasy, but
You're
I
right.
do typically categorize it as such.
Mhm.
I tend to think of it more like in the same vein as mythology. Um,
Mhm.
and interestingly enough, as a child, I actually read a lot of Greek, Roman, and African mythology.
Mhm.
I happen to think it falls into a similar
Yeah.
category.
Yeah.
But when you go onto like the Amazon categories, I think it's under fantasy. So.
Okay, okay,
Mhm.
interesting. Yeah, because I
Mhm.
was going, okay, it's spiritual, but then I hadn't thought about mythology, and I can see where it would definitely fall under that as well. And I too, I
Mhm.
loved mythology growing up, and then when I became a teacher, I would read it to my students and turn them on to mythology as well. So if Hidden by Moonlight had been around then, I probably would have shared a little with them.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
still in contact with a lot of my students who I taught in fifth grade 30 years ago. So they,
Thanks.
yeah,
That's
so
awesome.
they know about Hidden by Moonlight too. Like,
They can read it now. They old enough. They can
they
read
old
it
enough to read it exactly. I won't get in trouble. They can read it now. They 40. They can handle it.
now.
So, well, thank you so much for spending this time with us. I enjoyed it immensely. I love talking with you and spending time with you. So thank
Same,
you.
same to you. I appreciate you so much.
Oh, you are welcome. All right, y'all. You can get your readings. Oh, and for the year reading, is that all on the website?
The reading of the year is actually on our temple website, which is
Okay.
templeofanu.org. So temple of anu.org. So folks can it's an audio download. You guys can download that and get your roadmap for the year. And then again, if you want to reach out to me for a personal reading about your own, like what's going on, more specific details about your own situation, what's going on with you,
Mhm.
again, you can go to my website, hiddenbymoonlight.com, and you'll see information about my readings there. You can purchase on the website, or you can send me a message so we can talk about what you're looking for, what you need. And just thank anybody who trusts me to divine and to speak to spirit on their behalf. It
Mhm.
really is an honor to be trusted in that way. So I appreciate y'all for that.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that because, right, you can't trust everybody.
No,
And
you
and
cannot.
so, right. So when y'all hear her say yes, she gave me yes, it's because I trust her, right? And then what she did for Edmund and myself, it resonated with us. And that's important too, because there's also that self-awareness. And so what she said, it was confirmation, it lifted the fog. But we understand it's not for everybody, but if it is something that you're interested in, and other people who I know have received readings as well. So definitely something to take into consideration. For those who have not subscribed to my YouTube channel, Ask Dr. Walls 525, please be sure to do so. I have shows regularly, whether it be authors, about finance, like I did one earlier today with my younger brother, mental health, the greatest blueprint. If you look on my page, you'll see playlists and different types of shows fall under the different categories. Tomorrow night, we'll be doing the one for our nonprofit, registered nonprofit, Sisters for Harmony. So, my husband, Ed Herman, as well as our vice president, Ruby Burke, will host that one. And we are super excited to have as our guest Dr. Nia Bailey. And she earned her doctorate in public administration. She does a lot of work around cancer. She's also an author and she hosts a lot of wellness events. So we're super excited to talk with her. And then I also have the Flowering Fashionista, where we talk about fashion. And I had the privilege of doing the red carpet for Loving My Curves fashion show during Philly Fashion Week, and had a chance to meet the originator of the plus size full fashion week in New York. So yeah, so I get a chance to talk to a lot of different people. So be sure to subscribe, join this conversation. Yes, has been wonderful. People are saying thank you so much. The reading of the year is so on point. Thank you. I enjoyed listening in, everything. So definitely be sure to hit the replay on this one because there were so many tambourine moments. Sometimes I didn't shake it because I did not want to interrupt or drown it out. So definitely, and share the replay with others as well. And definitely check out Hidden by Moonlight and stay in touch with Embahra. Be sure to follow her on social media and see them pole dancing moves because she has grown, grown, grown. Grown folks pole. All right.
That's
All
what
right.
I
Yeah, okay.
said.
We will speak again soon. Be well, everyone. Have a great night. I hope to see you tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. All right. Be well.